I remember the days when I was a chronic overthinker. I felt like my mind was constantly in a whirlwind of thoughts that I couldn't control. I was constantly worrying about how the future would turn out, going over and over conversations I had with people and trying to analyze every single situation. I just couldn't seem to shut off my freaking brain, and it was taking a toll on my mental health. If you're anything like me, you understand the pain and frustration that comes with being an overthinker. Today I'm going to cover 7 vital things that every single overthinker needs to know ASAP. And make sure you stick around to the end because I'm going to give you the knowledge, understanding, and tools that I've implemented as a recovering overthinker and how you can use them to live a more peaceful life. I used to be absolutely paralyzed by the fear of trying something out and making a mistake. I'd spend countless hours just overanalyzing every single detail of that decision, even the very mundane ones that had no effect. And I was so afraid of making the wrong call that I just often would not make any call. I just wouldn't even go for it. I remember when I was 24, I sat down and I had a chat with myself. I was like, all right, you can start a YouTube channel right now. You have a lot of friends with a lot of resources that are very successful on the platform, and it's a good starting point for you. Like, why not do it? And I was so afraid of doing something wrong, that people wouldn't like my content, and every little detail that I just never got started. And now years later, even though I don't have those types of resources anymore, I realized that I had to at least try, even if I failed. For me, it was a matter of shifting my mindset to realize that mistakes are a part of the process and it's okay to make them. It's okay to fail and learn from your mistakes, but it's not okay to just sit in the sidelines and not put yourself out there. And now that I've been able to take that leap of faith, I've started to take on more risks too. And although I don't always get it right the first time, I've realized that the more at-bats I take, the more I'm able to push myself out of my comfort zone and try new things. And so if you're an overthinker, don't let the fear of making a mistake stop you from taking risks. You won't always get it right, but you're going to always learn lessons that you can apply in future endeavors. I know how it feels to be overwhelmed by the pressures of life. I used to overthink every single detail of my life, from what I was going to wear to what I was going to say in conversations. I was constantly trying to avoid making any mistakes, but it wasn't until I started to get sit-downs from actual normal people that told me that it's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's very natural to be scared and anxious, and it's okay to make mistakes because we all make them. And so instead of trying to be perfect, I just started to focus on the present moment and just trying to be good at what I could actually control and just get better at that. And so instead of trying to control everything, I just started to focus on the present and let go of the need to be perfect. I'll never forget the day that I realized that my overthinking was getting in the way of me enjoying life. I was on a boating trip with some friends and we were just all so excited to just get out on the water. I was so overwhelmed by all the possibilities that weekend can bring that I just didn't know what to do first. I wanted to make sure I was doing the right thing, so I spent the entire day just analyzing every single option and just letting that stress get in the way from me even doing anything. And as the day went on, I noticed that all my friends were starting to get really upset with me, and they were pissed that I wasn't getting in and joining in on the fun. And after I basically ruined that entire day, I had that moment of clarity later that night. I realized that I should have just went with the flow, like enjoyed the present moment and trusted my instincts. And since then, I've taken that approach a lot more often, and I've found myself to be a lot happier when I decide to just go with my own instincts, because they're usually right. I have a tendency to try to make sense of everything in the world and come up with solutions to problems. This constant process can be exhausting, and I often find myself overwhelmed as a result. And this is where I came to realize that the importance of giving your mind a rest and taking breaks is super important. I love taking a break to just do things that just turn my brain off, like listen to music or work out, anything of that nature. It's amazing how just a few minutes of doing something that can just turn your mind off can just be so relaxing and good for you. And when you get caught in a constant loop of overthinking and worrying, this can just help you gain a lot of perspective. It allows you to see things in a different light and to look at things a bit more clear-headed. I used to be so focused on trying to predict the future and control the outcome. I put so much emphasis on this that I felt like I was losing control of my life. I was so overwhelmed by not knowing the consequences of my actions, and I was just in a constant overwhelmed whirlpool. I realized that I was spending so much time worrying about the future that I wasn't living in the present moment. I had to accept that I couldn't predict the future and that there's uncertainty to life. I had to get comfortable not knowing what would happen next and just learn to trust the process and learn to trust my gut, my instincts, and my decisions. And now accepting uncertainty has allowed me to move forward in life. This has allowed me to be a lot more flexible and open to change, be willing to put a ton of time into a leap of faith like creating a YouTube channel and not knowing the outcome of it, but just trusting that my hard work is going to, at the very least, teach me a lot. So for example, if someone's having a really hard time at work, the problem is rarely the work itself. It could be the lack of resources, it could be unclear instructions, or it could be lack of support from your management. It could be a combination of all three of those things, or it could be none of them, and it's a problem related outside of work. And so at the end of the day, the problem is often just how you interpret the situation. Instead of focusing on the facts and asking the right questions, I found myself just being led by my emotional state and letting that drive the decision making for me. When I started to look at things more logically, I realized that the problem was rarely the problem, but just how I was looking at it. So as an overthinker, I encourage you to take a step back and look at the facts. You may be right about a situation, but a lot of times you may not be. We all have our insecurities and fears, and I know this all too well. It's so easy to get stuck in your head, worry, and criticize yourself for not being perfect. The fear of not living up to certain people's standards held me back. I wanted to be successful and perfect in everything I did. I always approached things with the mindset that if I wasn't already good at it, then I couldn't be good at it, and I should just not even try because I won't be perfect. And that was just such flawed thinking, because everything you do, you're always going to suck when you start unless you're a prodigy. And even then, it's very rare that you are going to be like phenomenal from the jump. It just never happens. And I had to come to terms with, I don't have to be perfect to be successful. I don't have to be great at something from the start to be good at it years later. I could make mistakes all throughout the journey and still reach my goals at the end of the day. And that's when I realized that perfect isn't the goal. The goal is to just keep trying and to stay on course and just let yourself be imperfect and continue on. It's important to remember that as an overthinker, you're not alone, and there are resources that can help. It's also important to keep an open mind and realize that it's beneficial in a lot of times to be an overthinker. It's a good thing in a sense. You want to be hyper aware of everything around you to a certain extent. You just don't want it to be crippling. And that's why these strategies have helped me regulate my emotions and thoughts and manage all the stress that comes along with being an overthinker. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, I don't know what you're waiting for. Check out the next video coming up, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.